Hey, thanks.
I'm so sorry. Donation jars.
Come on, donations. Pony up. Pony up. We got
I'm just
There's
saying.
one bill in there. That's it. Come on, let's go. Pony up.
We are taking
How much you need for each person here? $5?
No, we just have.
I already donated.
Get out. Just contributions for us to be able to do this week after week after week. Pizza and pop. So if you know, think about it and continue coming and eating pizza. Put it
You got it, but Sherry, you got to have a number. Come on, what's the number?
Well,
$5 each or
what's
something
in
like that?
here? Who
Huh?
put that in there?
I don't know who put that in.
That's a really good.
That was
$5
Gary.
or something like that anyway. Oh, so pony up, get your wallets out. Let's go. We need pizza next week too. Or is it next week or next month? Next week. Every Wednesday. Awesome, every Wednesday. Hey, thanks for having me. You know what? I love speaking to Lake County, especially towns like Antioch and people from Antioch. I started in business, so I worked for a guy from Antioch through high school, paving driveways. Any of you old timers here remember a guy named Tunyon?
Yes.
Everett Tunyon.
Yeah.
You ever remember Everett Tunyon?
Yep.
So Everett Tunyon,
31.
he was a good guy, but you know what? He wasn't a big quality guy. When it came to quality and driveways, he just wanted to get it done and get out and get paid. And I realized that he was doing a decent job, but he didn't like go overboard. And so by the time I got out of high school, I graduated high school, I decided I'm going to do either landscaping or paving. And I was going to do some paving because I believe there's a lot of work in this paving, because back then most driveways were gravel. Lake County driveways, a lot of them were gravel back then. And Bill had a lot of work, so I thought, gosh, if Bill's got this much work, I can do this too. So anyway, so Antioch has got a special place in my heart for sure. And don't even invite these other guys up here because they're from Southern Illinois. You got a farmer, you got a guy from the middle of the state. Nobody else from Lake County. I'm the guy so far. Somebody else from Lake County jumps in the race. Okay, you can have him talk. Otherwise, don't let anybody else in. Right?
Bolt the door.
Shut the door behind him. If you need me to come back, I'll come back again, right? Okay, so here's it. I'm going to win anyway. Okay, you want a winner and a guy from Lake County, right? Yep. So again, think back. I've got some faces in the room like Tom and Sherry. I mean, I remember paving driveways and seeing Tom building his business and Tom with his fancy boats and stuff, right, Tom? On the chain, Tom always had like the nicest boats. I used to do seawalls through high school and after high school. Some of my best work when I first started paving driveways. I also did seawalls. So I put flyers all around the chain, and I came up with this slogan. It was "Retain your shoreline with riprap by Rabine." And I got a lot of work out of this. I mean, it was pretty good. Is that Dr. Dan right there? Doc, what are you up to, buddy? Thanks for being there.
Hey.
Nice to see you. The guy doesn't age. What's with that guy? What are you taking? What are you drinking? He doesn't age.
That's the official maker of Fox Lake, right?
That's right. So think about this. So again, I look back. 1981, I graduated high school. My buddies before I graduated laughed at me because my buddies in Richmond Burton. I went to Grand High School for a couple of years. I went to Richmond Burton. And a couple of my buddy of mine laughed at me because I wasn't going to go to college, and they were. So one friend of mine said, "So you're going to be a ditch digger, huh, Rabine?" I said, "I don't know, ditch digger." He goes, "The world needs ditch diggers, Rabine." And he took that from that quote from Caddyshack that came out a year before I graduated, right? And so he then it was about a study hall about the size of this, maybe 30 kids in the study hall, and he goes loudly, he goes, "So, hey everybody, Rabine's going to be a ditch digger." And everybody broke out laughing, right? I felt a little bit embarrassed, but I'll never forget it because it was a chip on my shoulder I still have today, right? I'm still talking about it. So I actually have a podcast today based on entrepreneurship called Ditch Digger CEO, and it's all about rags to riches stories, growing something from nothing into something substantial, right? So when I go back and I think about Antioch, Illinois, and where I grew up in Fox Lake, Illinois, I think about wrestling Antioch. They always have great wrestling programs up here. I think about my first driveways I paved were Antioch, Round Lake, Fox Lake, sea walls around the chain up here. And so it's special place in my heart for sure is Antioch. So when I look at my history, people say, "How's a guy like you, a ditch digger, no college education? How do you expect to be the governor of a state?" Come on, the governor of a state, you got to be highly educated, man. You got to be a billionaire probably, right? So you just can't be a hillbilly paving guy. So when people ask me that question, I talk about my history. And my history for the first 20 years was in the field. Doc, you saw, I mean, we paved driveways for the first 10 years and then parking lots for the next 10 years. So 20 years later, we're paving a lot of parking lots all around Lake County, McHenry County, Illinois, Northern Illinois. Eventually, I said, gosh, you know what, we're doing these things all over the state of Illinois now, 20 years in. I think I can pave parking lots all over the country. So I started going after the biggest customers in the country, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, and some of the biggest landowners, and selling them that we could pave their parking lots. Now, I mean, it took a lot of ingenuity because we had to figure out how we're going to move equipment to other states. We had to figure out when we couldn't get equipment to Hawaii or Alaska, how we're going to rent equipment, or how we're going to sub somebody else out to do parking lots, right? But over time, it took us about 10 more years, 30 years later, we figured out how to pave parking lots anywhere in the country. So our business grew from this little local company. In 20 years, we really weren't that big. We're about a $6 million company. And then 30 years, 10 years later, we're over $200 million in sales, right? Which dollars don't mean much, but the jobs we created, the innovation we came up with to do what we did has been precedent-setting in our industry. So it's been a lot of fun. But so the last 10 years has been fun because we've been building businesses. Every year we start a new company. In the last 20 years, we started 30 different companies. So and all pretty much focused on the facility space, serving the same customers that we do parking lots for. We do roofing maintenance, we do doors and docks, we do HVAC, we do a lot of different things for these customers, and it's been a lot of fun. Today, I'm in a position where my son runs all our businesses. Austin's 33, going to be 34 years old. Janelle runs our national company. She's 31, going to be 32 years old. My daughter, Jordan, is an attorney. She says, "You're too tight, Dad. I'm not working for you." She worked for a big accounting firm, Ernst & Young. So she worked for us temporarily. We wouldn't pay her what we pay everybody else, and so she went somewhere else. But she came back. She's having her third baby, so she wanted to go and raise the kids. And so I just recruited her a few months ago to come on board as my chief of staff in this campaign. And she's the sharpest of all our family. So I've got her and my team, and my son Nick is here. Nick we adopted when he was 2.5 years old. He's a little Russian. But Nick's small, but he's mighty. He's my main bodyguard. So watch out. All right, so anyway, so this building a family is the biggest blessing in my life. I had a wife that is amazing. Many people know my wife, Cheryl. Married for 35 years. She passed away here about 6 months ago. She had brain cancer and fought it for about 4.5 years and fought it like a warrior. But we lost her here about six months ago. And she's probably my biggest unfair advantage. So I mean, I've got some unfair advantages in my life. My dad was an amazing guy that taught me work ethic. He's 82 years old and he's still working his butt off. He loves work. Some of you guys know him. My wife, my mom was an amazing mom. But my wife was the most amazing person in the world. She had a heart of gold, a God-loving woman that taught me faith that I didn't really have when I was a younger guy. Raised 4 amazing kids, and she left us in a good place. So when I look at my history, the first 20 years taught me work ethic. It really taught me how to labor and understand labor and how tough it is to make a buck, how tough it is to make payroll. Sometimes you don't have enough money to make payroll. You're asking your teammates can you hold off a week or two, right? I mean, building business is not easy. But for 20 years, I got a taste of exactly how to build business and how to build it from the ground up and labor in the field almost every day, right? And I love work. The last 20 years, I've been challenged to be an entrepreneur. In about 2001, 2002, I decided we're going to build business across the country, and it worked out pretty well. And we had tough times there as well. But bottom line is, over that time, as I knew I was going to build business in other parts of the country, I decided to join some associations of national organizations of leadership where I could learn the good states and the bad states. What are the best states to work in? What are the worst states to work in? Where can we get a permit fast? And where does it take forever? So where it took a long time to get a permit, we'd say, okay, we're going to sub that one out to somebody else. And where we knew we could get a permit fast, we would move equipment and do a job ourselves, right? So in this time, over the last really 15 years, since 2006, 2007, we've seen Illinois, I've seen Illinois, as I've done work all over, go from being the best place in the middle of the greatest country in the world to find a job, to start a business, to grow a business, to today being the worst. The worst. I mean, when we look today at building our business in Illinois, and our accountants and our attorneys would say, well, are you sure you want to build them here? And still today, our 11 companies we run out of the Rabine Group are all they're based out of Schaumburg, Illinois, doing work in many cases all over the country. Now anybody will tell you that's not the smartest thing to do, because Illinois is tough. We've got the most liability-ridden. When we look at our policy or we look at our regulation, for employment, for workers' compensation. It's definitely the worst now in the middle of the country, and one of the top 3 worst in the country. Back 14, 15 years ago, it was like average. It was average. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was kind of average. That's changed. When we look at taxation, back then, as anybody in this place owns any piece of property at all, back then, 2007, before the 2008 crash, right? 2007, our real estate taxes were just a little more than average. They weren't the cheapest, right? But they weren't the most expensive. Today, highest real estate tax in the country. I mean, if we're not the highest, people say, oh, New Jersey's higher. I disagree, because the data we have says we're higher now than them by a bunch. Either way, we're the highest for sure. If we're number 2, either way, it's a terrible thing. Okay? So in that time, in 2000, from that time in 2007 to today, our property values have gone down. You know, our average property value in a home has gone down 30, 40%. Okay? That's not common. Other states don't have this problem. I mean, there's a couple. But heck, even dumbass California. I mean, they're like the second or third highest tax state after us in total tax now, right? I mean, they've always been high. But their property tax is frozen at 1%. So at least they reward property values and people owning property, because their properties have over doubled in that same time period, right? Our neighbor Indiana also froze. Mitch Daniels froze theirs at 1%, right? They're about 100% higher than 2007 today. Our neighbor, Indiana. Come on, Indiana better than us? That's ridiculous. So here's the thing. Through my growth in business, my national growth, most importantly, I've been amongst a couple of really good organizations, actually 3 that I can tell you, that have really made me mature when it comes to understanding economics, government, right? Job creation, taxation. And here's Job Creators Network was a group that Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, asked me to join about 12 years ago. This organization was brand new. And he said, we need a small-time business guy. We need national-minded people, and we need some smaller guys. So Gary, we pick you. They had Sheldon Adelson in this group. They had the founder of Best Buy in this group, and many others. So I was kind of a smaller. I thought I was a pretty big business guy by this point, right? But I was nothing compared to these guys, and that was great because I could learn so much from these guys. But the goal of this Business Job Creators Network, this nonprofit, was to search out the worst regulations our country had and go after them. Shine a light on them, right? Mostly federal regulations. Shine a light on them and say, this is wrong. The business community has to rise up because this is going to kill jobs, right? The sole responsibility for Job Creators Network still today, and I had a quarterly call today with these guys, the same board members I've been on for a long time. And the sole thing is, how do we stop this crazy runaway federal government that's going to kill jobs, right? And we've had a great history of stopping some crazy stuff that would have hurt jobs in a big way over the last 12 years. So Job Creators Network has been a blessing to me. But soon after Job Creators Network, guys, a young man came up to me and told me about what his goals were. And by this time, it was 2013, and I was really all about, my wife and I were really about, what can we do to invest in things that protect free enterprise and push back on this, what we saw, kind of a Marxist agenda in our college campuses and across our country, right? So this young man came up to me and said, Mr. Rabine, I've been wanting to meet you. He goes, I heard you do things for good cause for free enterprise. Could you help me out? I said, well, what's your story? And he's a 19-year-old kid, and he's kind of geeky looking, right? And he says, I got this organization I just started. I've raised $15,000, and I need a lot more money to build this to where it's a national organization. So I sat down with him for a couple hours, and he told me his story, told me his goals and his expectations. But this young man at 19 years old found a passion in world governance. So at 19 years old, he'd been, since he's 9 years old, started reading a book a day, only on world governance. Now, he's reading books way before that. But his mom and dad told me the story about 6 months later. Started reading a book a day only on world governance. So this son of a gun, you could ask him any question of any country in the world, right? As far as where they're at economically, any time, only the last, he only went back 2,000 years now, okay? Only 2,000 years back. You can ask him any question of any country in the world of where they're at economically at any point in time. This kid had to find out he's got a photographic memory. I love the kid. I invested in him. I helped him get his organization started. Organization now today, Turning Point USA. So Turning Point USA. So with Turning Point USA, I thought, man, I'm gonna help teach this kid, how to run or grow an organization, right? Well, I helped raise a lot of money for him over the next 6 months or so. But man, I didn't have to teach him anything. I mean, he taught me a lot over the course of my last 12, 13 years, right? He taught me a lot about the Marxist movement, how it's worked all over the world, right? He taught me all about, how they divide and conquer, right, when they do this thing, this Marxist movement. And even back then, I didn't see it happen. I saw on our college campuses my kids being talked to about socialism is good. My kids were like, yeah, right. They knew what entrepreneurs all about, what entrepreneurship's about. They didn't have anything to do with it, right? But still, I took it seriously because I knew other friends of theirs were really getting the socialist thing that I think is a good thing, right? So bottom line is, when Charlie came about, I really wanted to help him. That organization's grown to over 700,000 kids in college campuses across our country. It today raises $50 to $60 million a year. I mean, it keeps going up. So I think it's 60 million this year and 50 million last year. But I mean, it's crazy what this kid's doing and what this organization's doing. And in all a selfless way. This kid he didn't do this because he wanted to be a rich guy someday. He didn't do this because he wanted notoriety. He did this 100% because he saw our country, the greatest country in the world, being attacked, right? And he saw this before everybody else. So so within Turning Point USA, what do I learn? I learn all about the country and the movement of the country, as we have college kids all over the country, right? And we have different governances all over the country putting pressure on kids. So that's been a great organization. But one of the best organizations I joined, I was asked by Job Creators Network to get involved in the Republican Governors Association so we could help these governors understand, bad regulation, good regulation, and things that hurt jobs. So these organizations have taught me a lot. And over the course of this time, I'm friends with a bunch of governors, and I see the governors doing a great job, working their butts off to create jobs and bring jobs to their states. And I look at our state over the same period of time, I'm like, man, we're doing everything we can to push job creators out, right? To push opportunity out, to push our kids out, right? I mean, our kids, we can't look at our kids today, and I can't tell Nick or any of my kids, this is the place you must stay and build your family. It's the best place to work, to find a job, to build a business. I can't tell them that. But I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to be able to tell them that. Because I'm going to win this race. I'm going to win the primary, and then I'm going to win this general. And people say, how the heck can you say that, Rabine? You're a hillbilly. Yeah, you got a little bit of wealth, but nothing compared to the billionaire, right? And I don't. But I'm confident that the national network I built and the friends I built in Illinois, I'm going to have people investing in this race who've never invested in a race before. People with money that don't go into politics because they're afraid of the cancel culture. That I'm gonna let they're gonna invest in me. And I got friends across the country that, like me, invest in causes for free enterprise. And this is the best cause for free enterprise our country has. We got a state like Illinois in the middle of the greatest country in the world that's going to heck in a handbasket, right? This is the best cause for free enterprise. If we can turn the state around, you can turn any state around. California, New York, right? But this is the heart of the country, and we're going to do it here. So I'm going to tell you what my goals are now. So people that don't know me, or people that know me a little bit, and my friends say, hey, this Rabine buddy of mine is running, and they'll say, who's that? Is that the paving guy? And they'll say, yeah, paving guy. Like, paving guy? What's a paving guy? So then I got to tell them the story so they can tell the story. But either way, the paving guy. So my slogan is paving the way to stay. Paving the way to stay, because so many of us are thinking, man, are we going to stay? Because we go, right? Yeah. So you guys like that? Paving the way to stay. Yeah. So just one time, well, maybe a couple of, but first I want you all to do this one time. Paving the way to stay loudly, okay? I want this to get etched in your head, because this is what we're going to be doing. And if we're not doing it, you're going to call me out and say, Rabine, get on course, you're not paving the way to stay. All right? So, 1, 2, 3. Paving the way to stay. One more time, that was terrible. Right? 1, 2, 3. Paving the way to stay. All right, that's much better. All right, so here's how we're going to do it. There's 3 things I can't focus on too much more than 3 things at a time, right? So I got 3 things that I think will change Illinois. 3 things. And there's a lot of stuff that goes below these 3 things. But these 3 things are pretty simple. And if we change these 3 things, we're going to love being here. We're going to want to stay. So number 1, in my eyes, my biggest strength is job creation. I know how to create jobs. I understand what inhibits job creation with my experience creating jobs and then being where I'm at today. So number 1 is creating jobs. Right now we're losing 50,000 jobs a year. Before COVID, 50,000 jobs are leaving Illinois to go somewhere else. People taking their manufacturing business, taking their business like mine, and leaving Indiana, Wisconsin, Tennessee, wherever, and they're taking their jobs out of here. We're going to stop the bleeding, and we have to stop the bleeding and create 50,000 jobs or more. That's my goal by 2024. So 50,000 or more by 2024. We're going to do that with a lot of regulatory reform, workers' compensation reform, a lot of things we got to do, and we're going to get it done. So that's number 1. Number two is crushing these property taxes. Crushing these property taxes, 50% or more. Okay, 50 is going to be a common thing. 50% or more by 2024. Okay, what does that do? Think about it. We are right now, okay, 50%, by the way, doesn't get us quite to the average of the country, right? If we just be average, if our property taxes are the average of the country, we're right about 1%, just a little over 1%. So think about this. If you got a $400,000 home, right? The average of the country is paying about $4,000 a year in property tax. That's average. Where the heck are we at, right? Here, I mean, Antioch, I think you guys are 2.5 to 3% probably. I know where I'm at in Woodstock, Illinois nowadays. We're at 4%, right? So think about that, right? That's $12,000 to $16,000 compared to $4,000. That's not taxation anymore. That's tax theft.
Yep.
Okay, it's tax theft, and we have to look at it that way. We can't be okay with that. I mean, if we're shopping for anything, if we're going to pay 10 or 20% more, we better be getting some real value, right? But if we're paying 150, 250% more, and we're not getting value, we're not staying, right? So I'm very confident. And people say, how are you going to do all that, Rabine? People say, you're nuts. You can't do that. Well, I'm telling you we can. And I'll go into that in a minute. The last thing that's probably most important is families, right? We're not serving our families anymore in Illinois. I mean, as a state, they're looking to be served, right? They're like royalty. They want to be served. They're not serving anymore at all in Illinois. If they were, we'd have safe communities. We sure the heck wouldn't pass these stupid these policing laws, would we? I mean, no way. I mean, safety is number one in the family. I mean, we're not getting that, right? Next is education. How are we letting the unions, figure out the curriculum and these legislators, right? Communities should be educating their kids. Instead, our unions are dictating everything. That's got to stop. And bad teachers need to be fired. I'm sorry. And if these unions continue, they got to be fired. Believe me, we have to separate. The public sector teachers' unions are. I'm a union guy in Illinois right now. Our businesses in Illinois are unionized businesses, right? I believe in these businesses we have, but when unions, in my opinion, public sector unions, right, aren't serving anymore, we have to question that, right? I mean, on the other hand, we got police. In my opinion, police are trying to serve, right? I'm sure you got a couple, 1 or 2% bad ones that need to be fired. Also, they can't be fired, right? But we need to hold them accountable. But these guys serve, and they're on their heels every day. So either way, service is key. So safety, and education are the key. But one more thing on top of the family thing is opportunity. You think of those first two things I said, we change those first two things, there's going to be tons of opportunity, right? We take our, back to, okay, so think of the opportunity when you take your property taxes down 50%. Your values go up. Tom knows a little bit about this, don't you, Tom? Okay, right? Our property values will go up. I mean, just again, look at Indiana, where the property values are about 100% higher than they were in 2007. Ours are down since 2007, right? How the heck are we not better than Indiana? Well, we know why, because we're overtaxed. Okay, it's this tax theft thing. So, all right, now we look at Rabine. How do you do this? How are we going to be able to do this stuff with this tax reform? All the money's derived from the local communities, right? And this is the way they built it. They built it so we all think, boy, we can't crush that property tax. We're going to crush our education. There's not going to be any money to educate our kids, right? But good states, most of their taxes for schools are derived from the state, and a small percentage from the local community, right? It's going to have to change. So this weekend, anybody hear of a guy named Art Laffer? A Laffer curve? Art Laffer today, at 80 years old, is as sharp as anybody I know. I mean, he's amazing. Another guy, so in this national organization stuff I've been doing, I've got to know some amazing people, and I don't want to sound like I'm name dropping, but this is important. We don't have great people on this team. In my businesses, I hire world-class people to be world-class. I'd be a local paving guy doing driveways still today if I didn't all of a sudden get this idea where I want to kick the crap out of every competitor in the world. I want to be better than every competitor in the world. And as I searched for the best in the world, we became the best in our country, in the country when it comes to parking lot paving, right? And so same thing with this. If we just say, you know what, this tax thing's not so bad, if we just lower it a little bit, or just freeze it at this crazy 3.4%, right? That doesn't work. But if we look for who's doing it the best, who's world class, who are the economists that are the best in the world? Well, I find out through Steve Moore, my friend Steve Moore, I got to be friends with through Job Fairs Network, that Art Laffer, his mentor, was not only Reagan's economic advisor, he was also Margaret Thatcher's economic advisor. And How about that, right? So so I'm on the phone with Art Laffer last week, setting up meetings I'm going to have this weekend. Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be at his place. He's going to go, him and his team are going to go over how we're going to fix Illinois. Anyway, and he goes, I go, Art, man, if I can be anything like, I get anything like what Jeb Bush did in Florida, which I'm not even a Jeb Bush fan nowadays, because I think he's a little bit too much of a globalist for me. But he did a great job in turning around Florida back then, right? If I can look at Mitch Daniels' record, what he did in Indiana, great job. And just across the border, right, Scott Walker and the job he did to switch from a state in debt to a state with a rainy day fund, right? So I mentioned these. I said, I want to be like that, but it's got to be a lot bigger, because they were like, there's like 13 billion there, there was like 20 billion in Indiana, and it was like 30 billion in Florida. We're talking 420 billion here, okay? So it's a little different, but it's still the same thing. You have to restructure. So anyway, I said I love what they did. I want to be like them, except a lot bigger than them. It's got to be a lot bigger. He goes, Gary, do you know what? There's something else those three guys have in common. I go, what's that? He goes, I was the consultant for all three of those. I said, yes! All right. Here's the idea. So he goes, when people tell you you can't do it, just like when the people tell you couldn't paint parking lots all over the country, he goes, continue to have that chip on your shoulder, the ditch digger chip on your shoulder, because you can. And I'm going to show you how you can. You're going to have a few different options to do those things when it comes to crushing property tax, when it comes to policy changes that the legislatures will be against me on in many cases, right? So again, building the right team is the most important thing in everything we do. I'm a paving guy, right? I'm a hillbilly paving guy, the ditch digger guy, whatever people want to call me. But I tell you what, I know what I don't know, and it's a lot. But when I don't know something and I'm learning something, I'm finding the best people I can find in the country, in this case in the country, right, to mentor me, to be there for me. So my goal is those three things, right? Number one is what? Job creation. We're going to create 50,000 or more by 2024. Number two, and that's going to change a lot of things, right? Okay, number two, property tax, crushing property tax, 50% or more by 2024, right? That's a big deal. It's gonna make our lives a lot easier. We're gonna have nest eggs. We're gonna have a nest egg again. We're gonna have actually investments that grow instead of shrink, right? In our real estate, in our homes. All right, and then lastly, we're gonna service the family like we haven't done for a long time. So those are the things we're about. And what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? We do those things well. We're gonna be doing what? We're gonna be paving the way to stay. All right. Okay. Question, Rick?
I got one. Gary.
Q&A.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
What about
Say your name again.
Tanya?
Tanya. All right, Tanya.
What about reopening the schools for the kids? And
you should never shut them down. It's ridiculous, okay? So, they should have been open all along, but they should definitely be open. Here's the thing. So back to Steve Moore, who's going to become a very good friend, Tanya. Steve Moore had these calls every week when it first came out that this COVID was going to get big. He was having calls where he invited me on, where he had global health scientists that have no skin in the game politically. And he had calls with them every week, and anybody wanted to be on the call. We had first 10 people, then 30 people. It grew. But anyway, so here's what they after 3-4 weeks, when Trump was talking about, do we shut things down and all that, okay, Steve Moore's health scientists were saying, okay, here's what we know. This virus is not going to hurt kids that are under puberty. Nope. They said they can't even transfer it. They're not even contagious. Okay, nope. They will not be contagious. Okay, we knew that back then. Then he said kids under 22, college age kids and under. He goes, the odds of them dying from this. Now they can die from this. They can get sick and they can die from it. But the odds are about 10% of the flu. So 1 in 10 compared to the flu. Okay, we don't keep kids home from college and from the flu, right? Knowing that there's a chance they can die from. I'm not saying we don't keep them home. We don't shut down schools, right? So again, with those odds, of course you send them to school and you protect the people that are, the teachers that need protection, right? You do the distancing, do everything you can do, understand the safety aspect, and get back to work and get back to school, right? So it was crazy that we're still out of school, and this is our teachers' unions that are dictating this, and weak leaders that are letting them, in my opinion, right? And it's crazy that we picked and choose businesses to shut down like we did, because I've got so many friends that are in a position like I would have been in 25, 30 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to get through it. I would have been out of business after building a business for 15, 20 years. I couldn't have got through this. We suffered a bit, but we were lucky that we've got, we're conservative. We have money saved. We got through some big tough times. But I'm telling you, It's terrible we did the small business. So both of those factors are ridiculous. You should not have shut down businesses and pick and choose businesses. It's a free country. We should have said, we should understand it fully, understand the safety, and educated people that had conditions like my wife or anybody, we need to protect them, stay home. Let's not get a lot of people around them. But it's a free country and should stay free.
One more thing.
Don't be a hog now. My answer is too long. Go ahead, Tom.
Part two. What are we gonna do with the corrupt politicians in Illinois?
So
Because they're on the Jeffrey Epstein flight log. Gotta say it. They've been on Jeffrey Epstein flight log. Pritzker family.
Yeah, well, you know what? Here's the deal.
No.
Here's what I believe. Well, number one, I'm not a fan of this governor. Otherwise, I wouldn't have run, right? I'm not a fan of him. I know him personally also. I'm not a fan. Okay, but here's the thing. I believe we got to go forward in a positive way. Yes, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of complacency in Springfield, right? I'm hopeful, and I've met some of these people lately, and I'm trying to meet them before this happens. Before I take over down there, right? Not take over, but I'm not a king like this guy. So before I leave down there, right? So I've got to know some people down there, and I'm confident we don't have the same type of leaders we had a year ago, right? Without Madigan, without Cullerton, I think we're in a better spot. Now, does that mean that they haven't taken on some of the same characteristics? Maybe, but I believe they understand the depths of our problems, and I believe they understand that this. Tom and I were talking, and Tom has the same answer most people that look at this say. When we look at our pension debt, people, you say, how much pension debt do we have? And Tom, you can't answer this, and neither can Dan, because I told you guys already. How much pension debt do we have in total, guys?
More than we should, because that's another thing that we should do. Some of these people.
Well, let's answer the question.
Have dipped
Whoa, you're
twice
close.
and 3 times on their pension.
Yeah, well, that's a problem, right? Okay, but how much? 350 is pretty close. People know that the combined pension deficit, unfunded deficit we have, when we look at the city of Chicago, the counties, and the state, unfunded pension deficit. Anybody know the answer? It's clear 350 is getting there. What?
450.
Whoa, you're getting close. Well, you cheat. You just jumped on this, right?
No, I already know
It's actually like 420 billion is what we can find. I mean, it's somewhere in that neighborhood. 40, but you could be right, but I think it's like 420 billion actually. So think about that. That's more pension debt per capita than any state in the country by far. It's way more than dumbass California again, right? How is that? How are we dumber than them? I never thought we could be, right? But either way, it's that bad. So when we think about this,